Welcome to Nobody Told Me. I'm Laura Owens.
And I'm Jan Black.
We are very proud that Nobody Told Me is a media partner with the 2020 Palm Beach Masters Series, which is equestrian sport at its finest.
The Palm Beach Masters Series features the world's best show-jumping riders and horses competing in 3 world-class events, the World Cup, Nations Cup, and Palm Beach Open. Show jumping is an intense, exciting sport, spotlighting the incredible partnership between riders and their horses.
And as a media partner with the 2020 Palm Beach Masters Series, we're talking with some of the riders who have trained for years to compete at this level. We want to know more about what motivates them and how they've dealt with disappointments and success. They've learned a lot of lessons which can benefit all of us, whether or not we ride.
And joining us on this episode is rising star Kelli Cruciotti, who's on a quest for an Olympic gold medal this year, and her mom, Cindy Cruciotti, who's an accomplished rider herself, in addition to being Kelli's trainer. Kelli and Cindy, thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
Tell us about how you started riding horses. Cindy, you're the mom. You started out first. You take the question first.
My parents knew from the very beginning that I loved horses when they walked in, and I was 4 years old, and I was trying to ride the television set. So we weren't horse people from the beginning, and they tried to persuade me to do other things. But by the time I was 12 and 13, they realized that they had something they had to pursue. So I started riding when I was 15 and taking lessons. And all I wanted to do was be at the barn. And it just went from there. I had some great mentors and people that really helped me along in my career. And I worked from the ground up and learned to groom and body clip and braid to pay for my horses. And that's how I got started.
And Kelli, how about you?
Well, I was much more fortunate that my mom was already in the business, so it made it a little bit easier for me to really know what I wanted to do with my life. And my mom has always been so supportive of me helping with the business, and now as a young professional working into being together and doing the training and the sales under one big team. So I feel very fortunate that I get to do the job that I love with my family.
And like us, you guys have a very special mother-daughter relationship, and you guys work together. What have some of the challenges been working with family members?
I think that it's always adds extra pressure in any relationship for a mother and daughter to work in a capacity of student and trainer as well as mother and daughter. And from the beginning, we were able to separate our relationship and keep it on a level that while we were in the ring and training, we viewed each other with the respect that we had for our trainer and our coach and our student. And then when we went home, we were able to keep the mother-daughter relationship very separate as well.
Do you think that being mother-daughter has actually helped a lot in that? I mean, in terms of dealing with the pressures, the highs, the lows, and the intensity that this sport brings about?
I definitely think so. I mean, I think at the end of the day, for me, it's very unique because she's not only my trainer, but she's, first of all, my mom. So whenever there's a rough day at the horse show or the round doesn't go quite as you want it to, I always know that I have the support of her 100%. And it also, she knows me very, very well, probably better than anyone. So if I am having a little bit of a mental block or not quite feeling something right, she knows exactly what to say, when to say it, and how to help me through it. So I think I definitely have a little bit of an advantage that way.
And Kelli, you've had to go through quite a few physical setbacks yourself, including being told at the age of 18 that you might not ride again. How did you persevere through that, knowing that riding was really your identity?
Again, I think I credit my family and my support team a lot for that. I think if you're by yourself and you're on your own, you're sort of your own worst enemy. You know, you kind of dream up the worst case scenario. And again, I was very fortunate to have a great team around me, my mom, my dad, my brother, everybody that really pushed me past that point of disappointment, and that, you know, there's really no stopping unless you yourself give up. So I worked through it with physical therapy and found different ways to do things and get stronger again. And I think it made me a stronger competitor in the long run because it showed me that there wasn't any roadblocks for me. I could do anything with the support of my family, and with our faith, we could really persevere through any obstacle.
Cindy, as a mom and as Kelli's trainer, do you find yourself ever being tougher on her or easier on her than you would be on your other students?
Gosh, that's a good question. I think in some ways, yes, because you're always trying to be objective, and you want to coddle them as your kids, and you want to hold their hand and make them not hurt and take all their pain away. But you also know that you have to allow them to grow, and you have to allow them to experience disappointment and failures in order to become a better person and a better rider. And that's a hard balance as a mom, because I think our first reaction is to always protect them. So I've always had kind of this good angel, bad angel on my shoulder, trying to determine what's the best discussions to have with her, and when to push, and when to be the mom, and when to let her cry, and and hold her, and then other times when to tell her to get back on the horse. You gotta push through this. So it's been a constant challenge for me to work through those issues for myself and try to be as fair as I can to her, but also to push her past things where I, as a mom, would want to just hold her back and protect her.
You guys really had to lean on each other during a horrible tragedy that occurred last year. Can you tell our audience about what happened on March 14th of 2019?
It's probably one of the worst nights of my life, when we woke up to our barn being on fire. And it is just an experience that I will never forget. And we really had to lean on God and our faith and our challenges to get us through. And he did. And we all were able to pull together and support one another.
How did that fire change each of you?
Kelli?
Oh, that's a good question. How did it change us? I think it definitely made you, like Cindy said, dig down into your roots and really realize what's important. And the important things is your faith and your family. And, a lot of that stuff is just what it is just stuff. Mm-hmm. And you really, in a moment like that, realize how fortunate you are, and that night could have been a lot worse, even though it was a tragedy and there were horses lost. The magnitude of it could have been so much worse. So you feel very, very thankful. So I think it really pushes you to live every day to the fullest and to utilize every opportunity that's given to you.
You always hear that in the worst times, you also see some really beautiful parts of humanity. And I'm wondering what good you guys were able to see in people while you were in the midst of dealing with all of this.
It was just overwhelming, the outpouring of love and support that the horse community gave to us. Within hours, that night there were people on our doorstep bringing us things for the horses and buckets, and helping us to find places for the horses to stay, and veterinarians, and just the unimaginable amount of people that just dropped everything and came to our aid. So it makes you realize that although we can be competitors and we get caught up in ribbons and all this, when a push comes to shove, with us as a family, and these people understand adversity. All of us, we've all gone through it, mm-hmm. and they were there to help us. And that, for me, was a really big reminder that everyone in their life has something going on that's a tragedy or a difficulty that they're working through, and we should all be sympathetic and understanding to those people's difficulties as well as our own.
Tell us how you get along with your fellow riders when, on the one hand, you're competing against each other, and yet you also share a unique bond.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting balance. Like you said, at the end of the day, we're all sort of after the same thing. We're all trying to make a living. We're all trying to do the very best that we can do, get the best horses, compete at the highest level, and do our very best. So I think there's an element that every good competitor can separate it, because there are great relationships in the business that we have with friends that we've known for a long time that we do, sales with, or just friends from seeing each other at the show. So I think any good rider knows how to separate it. But for sure, once you're in the ring, it's every person for themselves, pretty much. I mean, you're trying your best, and the person after you is going to try even harder. So you kind of have to go in with the mindset that you just lay it all out there, and that's all you can do, and then the rest is already decided.
What's been the most special part of your partnerships with these horses that you consider to be a horse of a lifetime? And you've probably had a few at this point.
Yeah, I think I've been very fortunate to have multiple horses that I could easily say have been horses of a lifetime for me. I think the greatest part is seeing so many of them last for so long. You see so much in the sport where horses come on the scene and they're great, but they only last for 6 months, a year, maybe 2 years at the top level. I still have my equitation horse that I won the medal finals on. He's 20. I have Chamonix retired, and she's 19, and I've had her now for 8 years. So the partnerships that I've been able to have with these horses have not only been amazing and life-changing, but I've been able to not just have them as partners in the ring, but also friends to lean on, and in hard times, really allow them to help me through it, because they're more than just horses to me, they're family. So I think that's definitely the most special part.
I'd like to ask both of you what you look for in a horse that you're considering buying or leasing, a horse that you really need for a competitive show.
For me, when we go to travel, the first thing I think I look for is their character. I want a horse with a beautiful eye, and one that looks at you and you can just see the compassion and the maternal instinct that they have. So, you want an athlete and you want one that's to be able to compete at this level, but the character of a horse is one that's going to bond with its rider and really connect and want to fight with you to win. So for me, that's my most important thing that I look for. Kelli?
No, definitely a lot of the same things. You want a horse, obviously, that's athletic, has a lot of natural ability, is very modern type of horse, not too big, not too small, has just the right amount of energy, all the big scope to jump the fences, which means that there's no jump that they can't jump. But like Cindy said, I think attitude and character goes a long way. You can have the horse with the most natural talent, and if they don't want to win, and if they're not, on your side, it doesn't make a difference. You can have a horse that has half the talent and all the heart, and it makes them a real champion of a horse. So definitely heart and character is probably top of the list.
How do you guys determine which horses compete at which shows, with an emphasis on the Palm Beach Masters, since we're media partners with them? What does it take for a horse to go there?
So with all the horses, especially the horses that jump and do the big classes, the Grand Prix or the World Cup, they're just like any other athlete. So you have to plan out their schedule. It's difficult. You have to sit down at the beginning of the year and really map out what your goals are for them, because they're just like people. They can't do everything, especially when they get a little bit older. So, for instance, the horse that I'll be riding at the Palm Beach Masters next week, Haja, our goal this year is to qualify for the World Cup Finals again in Las Vegas. So we sort of work backwards from that goal. We aim her to the shows that'll get us points to qualify for the finals. And Palm Beach Masters is always a great show. It's got great footing, great atmosphere. She jumped amazing there last year. So we thought it obviously was a easy decision to take her there again, hopefully getting some great points, and hopefully, I'd love to win. I'm just being honest. That'd be great. Palm Beach Masters is probably one of my favorite shows throughout the year, so it'd be awesome.
We mentioned that you are a rising star in this sport, and there are older people who have more wins and more years, under their belts than you do. What's it like to compete against those people who may have been I'm sure were your idols growing up?
Definitely, it's a privilege, and it's every time I come to a horse show, you sort of fight that star effect that you're in the company of a lot of legends and a lot of people that have had so much experience and had such an influence on the sport. So I feel very honored that I get to compete, and they're still my idols. All these people, BB Madden and everybody at the top of the sport is people I look up to and role models as a young professional that I try to manage my career similarly to how they did as a young person. So, it never really goes away. You never go to a show and you get used to seeing them all the time. So it's always that effect, and you try to emulate and hope that you have half the career that they've had.
What comes easy to you as a rider, and what do you struggle with?
What comes easy to me, I would say, I just love horses. I love riding them. My mom always used to joke that when we look for horses, I love them all. So it would be horrible to go on a trip with me. It's like, I love them all. They're great. So that's probably, I think I get along with a lot of different type of horses. So that's probably something that comes easy to me. And something that comes hard to me is probably being a little bit more stern with them and not just kind of letting them have their way. I kind of just like to get on and allow them to go how they naturally go. And sometimes it's not a whole lot of direction for them, so they don't really know what I want. So that's probably the hard thing that comes the least natural for me.
Kelli and Cindy, I'd like to ask each of you how you develop a bond with your horses. I mean, once you've selected one and bought it or leased it, how do you go about developing that bond?
I think for me, it's like with any relationship with a person that you develop trust with, your relationship over time. You work with them on a daily basis, and you don't push them to places that they're not comfortable going. You always make the decisions on their behalf. And I think horses know that. You have to be tough like I am with Kelli at times, and you have to be sympathetic at times. And over a period of time, you develop that relationship. And it can't be rushed. It's something that takes a long time at this level to have that relationship that you can really lean on your horse and they can lean on you. And I think Kelli and Haja have come to that place. It's been 4 years now that they've grown together. And she came to us with a lot of issues, a lot of trust issues, a lot of training issues. And it took us a long time to develop a bond because she was always very suspicious and very cautious in her personality. And she and Kelli now have just melded together. And it's so rewarding for me to see that because it's taken 4 years. And it was the same thing with Chamonix. Chamonix started out as the schoolmaster teacher type, and Kelli didn't have the experience. And as they grew and connected with each other, year after year, they just started to become one connection. And it was really fun to see that.
Yeah, that was something I wanted to ask you guys about, was how long you think it takes to develop a real partnership with the horse to the point where you have a good shot of winning. And I just know over the years, having leased equitation horses over the years for the day or, for a week or two, it just seems like, it never quite comes together, even if it's a good horse and a good rider.
I can't speak for Kelli, but for me, I think that you're missing out on one of the best journeys with an animal if you just lease it for the day and lease it for the week. You're going in to ride it as a vessel, and you're missing out on that relationship to develop. And whether you win or lose, I think the relationship that you have with your horse makes it all that much more special because you've worked for it and you've developed it, and your horse is really fighting for you because they love you. And I think that we all have our priorities of why we do this sport. And there are some that have time frames, but it's just a rewarding journey to be able to share that with an animal over a period of time. So that's just, my feeling on it.
Kelli?
Yeah, I think sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I wondered what your thoughts are on that.
I think I 100% agree with everything Cindy said. I think it's hard to put a time frame on it. If I had to, I'd probably say about a year. It really takes about a year to get to know a horse completely. And Cindy brought up a great point before. It's a lot of, a lot of just rounds and a lot of time and learning to trust them through you making mistakes, through them making mistakes, and really seeing how they handle it. I can remember very clearly the moment when I first rode Chamonix that I knew I could trust her, because I was doing a class that was probably way too big for me. under the lights, and I was super nervous, and I remember just being so scared, and she just was just like a rock. She's like, I got it, no problem. And that to me just was like, I can totally trust her. And the next time I went in, I had so much more confidence. I felt like I could ride my own ride, and it's just more experience you have with them, the more you learn to trust them. And now the courses are so technical, you have to have that level of trust and that level of experience with them, because the jumps are too big and the courses are too hard to ride if you don't really know your horse inside and out.
How do you handle fear, or do you ever feel fear at this point?
I wouldn't say ever fear. There's always I don't think pressure ever goes away. I think you can talk to any, top person. They always feel some type of pressure. And I think that's normal. I think any good athlete has, deals with that. And I think it only makes you better if you learn how to channel it and use it to your advantage and not let it shut you down. If you let it consume you and make get yourself riled up and make poor choices, I think it can work against you. But I think if you can channel it to where you're really thinking clearly, you're responding as quick as you can, I think it can really work to your benefit. So I would say always managing those feelings of pressure and wanting to do well for the team and wanting to do well for yourself, sort of putting those in a box and setting them aside and knowing that you have a job to do. It's just another horse show, whether it's called WEF or Hampton Classic or the Palm Beach Masters. They're all in the end the same. And you want to do well at all of them, but you also have to go in with the mindset that it's a job.
What have been the moments that you guys have really felt the need to rely on your faith to get you through them?
I think I can answer that.
Yeah.
I'll tell a brief story. So, you have, as I spoke about, wanting to give your daughter everything, and yet having to balance out as a trainer and a mom. And the second colic surgery that we had with Chamonix, and we were sitting up at CSU, which is a teaching hospital in Colorado, and Kelli was sitting next to me, and we were outside, and it was just she and I, and she was crying, and she said, I don't understand why God is doing this. I don't understand what the point and the purpose is, and I'll never be able to forgive myself if we lose Chamonix. And there was just this bright moment in the sunshine that it was just her and I, and we were both crying, and we didn't know if Chamonix was going to make it out of the surgery. And I said, God has a plan for us. I don't know what that plan is, and I can't tell you why this is happening right now, but I know that there's a reason for it. And it's for us to grow spiritually. It's for us to be here for Chamonix while she is going through fighting for her life. And that made us grow together as a mother and a daughter and in our faith, to remember that these animals are that. They give so much to us, and they're put in our lives for a purpose to help us to grow and look at our lives and look at ourselves and develop our faith in such a way that we can be ministers to Christ, to however we are supposed to influence others. And for me, that was the most important and memorable experience for us.
Kelli, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's hard to follow that up. I mean, she pretty much hit everything right over the head. And I am with Cindy. I can definitely remember that day like it was yesterday. And that really was the moment that I really committed my life to Christ, because I felt so out of control in that moment. And that's when I knew that I needed a higher power to make these calls and be in charge of my life, and that it's way bigger than me. And whatever happened, I trusted that God had a plan. And it was just amazing how the whole thing turned out, that, Chamonix was the 20% of horses that make it out of the surgery. That's super rare. She was retired and then brought back out of retirement and had the best year of her career, as did I. And that was something really special. And I truly thought that was a true gift from God, saying, this is a gift that I'm giving you for your, for your just believing and, and just really inspiring me that nothing is impossible when you believe.
And Kelli, we mentioned you're on a quest for the Olympics. Tell us more about the training and your day-to-day life as you embark on that.
Yep. So the quest is, it's based off a selection process. So you hit multiple shows. You try to get as many points as you can. Obviously, the bigger the show, the more points you get. So our goal really has been focusing on the World Cup finals this year, just because those are the big shows. They have the big Grand Prix. At the current moment, I have one very, very good horse. So you sort of have to be smart of what shows you go to. So training is just keeping her fit, keeping her healthy, and hoping that you can peak at those big shows. Hopefully Deerage Masters is one of them, and that you can hopefully be on their radar to be considered for the team.
And on every show, we ask our guests, what is your nobody told me lesson? So for both of you, what did nobody tell you about the difficulty of the sport, or about coming back from the seemingly impossible, or about faith that you wish that they had, because it would have saved you some very tough lessons?
I'm going to make you answer that one first.
Oh, gosh, that's a tough question. I guess nobody told me that it would be so fun.
Yeah.
And that just at the end of the day, to sit down on the couch and put your feet up and laugh with your family and go out and feed the horses some carrots. And, it's just so fun. And to keep that in mind. And so nobody told me it was going to be fun. It was always work, and it was, you got to do this and you got to do that. And I'm just so grateful that we're able to look back on it and say, we've had a great time together. This has been a fun journey.
Kelli, how about you?
I'm still pondering. I sort of think the question for me is a little bit opposite. I'm sort of, I kind of going back and forth of, nobody told me, like Cindy said, how much work it would be. And I'm sort of glad, because if you look back at how much work it's been, I'm not sure you would do it again. But so I think it's a little bit the opposite. I'm a little glad nobody's told me that. So I'm with Cindy. I'm glad nobody told me it'd be this fun. It's been a lot of hard work and a lot of rewarding. And I think it also, nobody told me that it would be such an amazing journey for our family to not just compete and go higher in the sport, but also grow closer as a family unit. So I think that's probably what nobody told me.
And Kelli, can you tell us how people can connect with you and watch you on your journey at the Palm Beach Masters?
So they can actually connect a couple different ways. They can follow me on Instagram. It's Kelli Cruciotti Official. Also on a Facebook page. I have an athlete page, Kelli Cruciotti. And then Palm Beach Masters has live video feed the whole week, and the World Cup will be streaming on FEI TV, and they can watch it there. I think it's really great quality, and I think there's a whole broadcast. There's a course walk and live commentary, so it's a great afternoon.
Well, we wish you the absolute best of luck. We'll be following you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks to both of you. Thanks to Kelli and Cindy Cruciotti. And again, best of luck to you in the Palm Beach Masters Series. And you can watch wall-to-wall coverage of the 2020 Palm Beach Masters Series online. And you can visit palmbeachmasters.com and be part of the action. I'm Jan Black.
And I'm Laura Owens.
You're listening to Nobody Told Me. Thank you so much for joining us.